Are you thinking about buying or selling a house, or just want to know what might be going on with one of your biggest investments? Then come hang out with us for a little while. I'm Kirk Duckwall, and this is the Twin Cities Real Estate Show on AM 950, and soon to be on the CW23 Fridays at 8:30 a.m. You can also, listen to us, I said, on AM 950. No, our podcasts as well. You can check that out. Just type in Twin Cities Real Estate Show in whatever device you use to find that. You can also check us out online anytime at TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com. There you can find past shows, our Market Monday updates, as well as the latest and greatest researching home tools and publications. All right, today we're going to be talking about summer selling tips. We got a lot to go through. First, want to mention our sponsors real quick. Bricks Real Estate Network Title, Eric Bloomstrand and Chad Preby with Bell Bank Mortgage, Structure Tech Home Inspections, James Tolson with Country Financial, along with Cregan's Construction and Gray Duck Staging and Design. If you have any questions for us today, you can give us a call at 651-303-0019. Again, 651-303-0019. All right, today in studio, Chad Preby, Bell Bank. Thanks for coming in as usual.
Thanks, guys. Yeah,
and
good to be
Libby
here.
Hollenkamp, Bricks Real Estate, Gray Duck Team.
That's me.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, so summer selling tips. So, I hate to break it to certain people out there, but the fastest moving market pace has actually passed us by. Passed us by in late March was the week where showing activity was at its highest pace, and probably soon to follow pricing on that. That said, it's not big dramatic drop-offs that we see in the late spring or summer season, so it's still a really good time to sell. We were just talking about it may be slowing down, but it's still the best market we've ever had.
For sure.
It doesn't feel like it's slowing down.
But that said, I mean, we had our weekly meeting. Were you in on the Monday one this week? Yeah. And so we were talking about how the showing activity, it was a noticeable difference, and offer activity was a noticeable difference in comparison to weeks earlier. Still very good, but not quite at the same pace it was.
For sure. And potentially different factors. Some of those buyers that had been running around writing offers and not successfully getting anything accepted may have kind of taken a break. That could definitely be a contributing factor. But it's nice to see the inventory hopefully starting to increase here.
Slowly but surely. I mean, we're really hanging out at that 5,000-ish listings. I think it was like 5,300 and something. But we're not picking up 500 a week or anything as far as increases in that.
For the demand, yeah.
Right.
And if we look back to 2019, that was over 10,000 listings at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's, again, why it's one of the best markets. But even in a best market, and I think it's funny, there's a perception that in a good market, I don't need to do as much to sell my home. Well, you always have the option not to do as much, but how much money do you want?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, we were joking about the weeds and the cracks on the sidewalk, and maybe the anthill, and how you're going to get $10,000 less for your home because of it.
We're only going to write it for $30,000 over list price
Instead of 40, right? But again, it's like, are you going to get more money if you wash your car before you sell the car,
sure.
right?
Those
And
first
so
impressions are critical.
Yep.
A little fresh paint, all the things that you can do, which, you don't want to go chasing the bouncing ball too far into projects to get your home ready. But all
right,
the
you don't
simple
need to
things you
remodel
can
your
do.
house
Yeah.
by any means.
But the
Right.
simple things that you can do.
Yeah. So first impression, that's a great place to start, because what is the first impression? It's when you step out of the car, right? So what's the curb appeal of that house? And if there is weeds in the cracks in the sidewalk, if it hasn't been edged, if there's weeds coming up through the mulch, if there's can't remember those trees that just pop up randomly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Little volunteer.
Or even-
Volunteer, that's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for. Yes,
Yeah.
the volunteers that haven't been taken care of for 6 years,
Right.
right, that are growing through your other bushes. So, it's doing those things that can really help, washing the siding. I mean, you brought that up, pressure wash the
Yeah.
siding.
One big thing for me is the screens on your windows. If you have holes in your screens, or if they're sun faded, take the screens up to the local hardware store. It's really inexpensive to get them fixed. But those are just little details that can add a lot of value to your home.
Absolutely. It can all factor into the buyer's perception of how well this property has been maintained by the seller. And
Right.
all those little things add up to, quality value.
Yep.
I will say a lot of the sellers that I've worked with during the summer months tend to be the ones who have more pride of their yard, and that's why they waited. They
Good
have the
point.
garden.
Yeah.
But that yard factor for those who maybe don't put as much time into it, right? They focus purely on the inside of the house. 50% of that showing to a certain extent, especially this time of year, spent, you're walking around the outside, checking things out. So, if you have the garden hose reel that's just draped across and the kids' toys hanging out in the back, and it's faded or cracked right? You want to pick that stuff up.
Right.
I always tell my sellers when they are preparing their home to list, walk through as if you're walking, looking through the eyes as a buyer, and be hypercritical of yourself now. Pretend like you're in the buyer's shoes, and notice the smells, the feel of everything, and just pretend like you want it to have that model home feel. You want to depersonalize and do all those things as well, but the experience you want that buyer to have, start thinking in that direction as a seller.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's
like
pretty
that.
funny. I had this couple that I was working with, and they were having a very hard time doing that, right? They would do it at the other houses. They would be hypercritical, but then they wouldn't be hypercritical on their own home. And I
It's
said,
human
you
nature.
need
It
to think about it this way, because that's how it's going to be looked at. I use the dirty car analogy. The other one that we have in our seller book, by the way, again, under publications, TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com, the Smart Seller, I call the fry effect, right? Which is if you go out to buy a new car and you get in there and it's got that new car smell, it drives the way you want it, performance is there, it's comfortable, you get out, what are you going to do? You're probably going to buy it.
Right.
Now, if you get into that exact same car, and there's a spilt bag of McDonald's fries in the passenger seat that had been sitting there from the night before, and a half-drinking thing of Coke, Diet Coke or whatever in there with the melted ice, that's been sitting there as well. How's your experience? How has it been changed? There's an ew factor to it. Doesn't smell the same. You kind of, they don't care about it, right?
Right.
Same thing happens when somebody walks into a home and sees dirty dishes in the sink. But also, the same thing happens when a person walks up and there are those anthills, or there are the weeds popping through all over the place.
Mulch hasn't been updated in 3 years.
Right,
and,
right.
all those
So
little
taking
details.
that time, we're not saying that you want to go remodel your house by any means, but mowing the lawn, pulling the weeds,
Right.
edging, cutting down those volunteers, getting the weeds out of those cracks. I keep saying that, but that's that's a pet peeve of mine, I think.
Well, and in this market, it's not like you're signing yourself up for a whole summer of work. It's probably going to go pretty quickly given the market and the low inventory. So
Right.
it's
So
just
take
part
that
of
weekend to do this,
getting that
and
highest dollar.
and no joke. I mean, you made the $10,000 comment, but it could have that effect, you know.
Right.
And so taking that time on the exterior as much as you're maybe putting into the interior too. Talking about that interior though, you mentioned the screens, but also open up the windows, get some fresh air rolling through right now, and you get the morning air. Or if you have trees and the birds are chirping, have that going on.
Absolutely.
Bring in the time of year into the house. Can definitely be beneficial.
For sure.
You mentioned the mulch. That's a great idea. Just no flipper red.
Don't do that.
Do not do flipper red. And if you'll know what I mean. You'll see that house that's the investment property, and then they put in the red mulch around the whole thing. just screams
clear.
rehab.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when we come back, we're going to talk about pricing strategies and then how to get ready for showings, as to the expectations and what's going to give that buyer, really the most comfortable showing experience. If you have any questions for us, again, you can give us a call, 651-303-0019. Again, 651-303-0019. Check us out again at TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com, TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com. We'll be right back. And then we're going to get some beeps. Turkey's done. I knew that segment would go fast.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so much to talk about.
I know, I'm like, what did I miss?
Did we cover everything?
I
think
say
so.
peeling paint. We didn't really touch on that. I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, we can start up. Do you want to hit on that real quick when we come back?
Sure.
Okay. I'm ready. Yep. Welcome back to the Twin Cities Real Estate Show on AM 950 and soon to be on the CW23. Keep promoting that out there. That should be pretty cool. You can follow our shows if you like to see us record our live show. We take those and post them up on Facebook right after the recording, and then also get them out on YouTube as well. Just type in Bricks Twin Cities. You can find all of those shows there. Today we are talking about summer selling tips. And we had one thing as far as the preparation that we didn't get to.
Peeling paint.
Peeling paint, yes.
One small detail, just looking around the house, the garage before, as you're preparing it to get ready, just scrape it and peel it. One thing that can do is if you have a buyer who is maybe pre-approved for an FHA loan, that's something that all of a sudden when the appraiser comes out, it's not an issue. You don't even have to think about it and worry about it and kind of heading off some of those
Save
issues.
yourself time.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you have it, it's likely with that FHA buyer, it could come up. Mm-hmm. And we're not saying by any means you have to sand it all down and get it perfectly smooth, strip it, and repaint the house. No, just if there's flakes, just scrape it off and put some fresh touch-up paint on there.
Let's touch on that appraisal real quick. When we talked about appearance, right? It's like an interview. You go to your job interview, you look sharp. You want to be on your A game. So it kind of like when that appraiser is coming out to appraise the value of the home that you're selling, the appraisal is an opinion of value, right? So that appraiser may be really big into a nice yard or a really well kept house that is clean, right? Windows are clean, kind of like we were talking about in the first segment. So the more that you do that, it's going to add value to your property. Now, in our market, we know things are selling at a high end, right?
Yep.
And if we have a situation where we need everything we can get for value, these little things that we're talking about could make the difference.
That's a great point.
Yeah, for sure.
And this leads right into pricing appropriately,
Right.
and having the right strategy as you do this. So I know a lot of people, when they look out at their neighborhood, and obviously they want to figure out what their home is worth. It's just kind of like a hobby. I mean, this is kind of how the Zestimate became a thing, right? Oh, my Zestimate, or my tax assessment. It all says this.
Right.
At the end of the day, the Zestimate isn't going to be, the price it probably sells for, right? And especially for off-market properties. I mean, in the Twin Cities, they're only within 5%, 46% of the time for off-market properties, the Zestimates. And this is information Zillow has publicly available for you to verify these. So, how do you know then what your home is worth? Well, an appraiser is going to come up with comps or comparable sales, right? But they have criteria to that. And I think a lot of homeowners don't necessarily know what that criteria is. So just like I'm not going to compare a pickup truck to a sedan when pricing things out, I don't want to compare a split level to a two-story. It is that big a difference.
It's a different animal.
It is a different animal. So this is the case with Rambler versus 3-level split, or modified 2-story versus story and a half. Right? There's all these different categories of styles, and the appraiser's trying to match up style to style. Right? Then they're trying to match up square footage to square footage. Now, the square footage piece, that's a little easier to make adjustments for than it is necessarily style.
Right.
So just because a house is next door to you or across the street from you in the similar size and it sells does not make it a comp. In the tunes of $20,000 to $50,000, depending on that style, can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, and I mean, a prime example, story and a half versus, let's say, a walkout Rambler. I mean, the walkout Rambler is going to have a serious premium on it.
For sure.
Right.
More
You know?
desirable.
Yeah.
So so that you need to make sure that you're looking at that piece. Also, to look at age of homes, right? You know, if you have a 25-year spread, that's a pretty big difference,
Right.
in that.
So you hear that a lot, right? Oh my God, my neighbor sold for this amount. My house has to be worth way more than that. And I'm
Right.
like, well, your neighbor also owns a walkout Rambler. You have a split level, and
Right. So you
Yeah.
want to you really want to line up your comps to be that similar style, similar age. So, you know, plus minus maybe 10 years, right? Similar square footage, plus minus 200 square feet. That's what we try to stay within. And then not crossing any major roads,
right.
right? Or railroad tracks, or
Yep.
you know, just dividing lines, cities jumping from city to city or school district to school district, right? So we have to keep our parameters pretty tight to really have a viable comp.
Especially now. I mean, these appraisers have a tough job.
Oh, for sure.
Things with the increase in values quickly. I mean, they're looking for something within a half a mile sold within the last couple months.
Yeah, and even
Yeah.
beyond
Right.
4 months ago, all of a sudden that's old news.
Old
Right.
news. I know. I feel for these appraisers. It's a tough market we're in.
Another thing that is really important, especially the summer market, is we see a dip in prices that starts to take effect. Not a big dip, right?
No.
But we do see a bit of a dip between the prices come out in, say, May or June, but usually that slowdown actually happened April, May, right? And you start to see it as the closings happen. So, you know, June is a little bit slower time, which means you want to have a different strategy as to the list price than maybe your neighbor had a few months back.
Absolutely.
You know, I've usually, up until this year, kind of looked at a price range and go, I'm going to price on the upper end of reasonable, right? Because we know we have the preparation done. We know we have the professional photography. We know that we're doing the coming soon. And so why not go on the high side of reasonable? That's the key, though. Because if you cross that reasonable boundary, you're not going to get showings.
Yeah, you stretch too far, and all of a sudden you're getting stale, and people are wondering what's wrong with the house.
Yeah.
That's definitely a big pitfall of overpricing. Given the current market, though,
I mean, how long
what's your strategy at this point in terms of?
Well, I'm starting to give the advice that, you know, the last couple months, I was actually going on the low side of reasonable and letting the multiple offers drive the price above the reasonable price range, right?
Yeah, that's
Right.
happening.
So you put it a little low to get as many buyers, and that takes faith in your realtor that they know what they're doing and they're explaining why they're doing what they're doing, to understand, hey, yeah, I'm not saying your home is worth this. I'm saying this is where you put it to get what it's worth.
It can feel like a counterintuitive strategy to a lot of sellers.
Yeah. But once you see those
in
4 to
this
6
market-
offers, then you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yep.
Right? Now, though,
And it depends on the house and the direct market too, I would say.
100%. I did the Market Monday video and I said, you want to talk about your strategy, but every house is individual. Don't just assume. Just because I say it here on air doesn't mean it's the case for everybody's house.
Right.
So you want to talk through that.
Good point.
But as we're coming into this slower market, which we know things are slowing, it's still the best market we've seen, but we know it is not as good as it was a few weeks ago. I mean, it's still very good, but not there. I'm looking at going more back towards that pricing on the high side of reasonable, right? Because we may not get 6 offers to drive the price up as high. Maybe we only get 2 or 3.
Yeah.
It's still going to drive it up a bit.
Reaching for that higher goal to begin with, though.
Yep, exactly.
Smart.
So, kind of the last thing to touch on is getting ready for showings themselves. Most people know this, but not everybody, especially if you're selling a house that has tenants in it or something. You want to make sure, gone for the showing. Don't worry. A real estate agent's going to be there to accompany them through. They have to book the showing. You can set it up that you have to approve all the showings, Also, a lot of people are doing only one showing at a time right now with COVID. But with the coming soon, you're able to let people pre-book for a few days. And like you mentioned, Libby, with well, now my train of thought disappearing a little bit here. Mentioned that it's going to sell in just a couple days, right? So you're not going to have weeks and weeks of this, right? If you leave for the weekend, then you come back, and you got your few offers, and you decide Sunday night or Monday around.
Go stay at a water park with your kids.
Yep.
There you go.
Take the pets.
All right. Well, hopefully you found this helpful. Take care, be safe, and have a great week.